Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado penny here.
And psychic combat with his crystal ball unveiled and ready to go.
All right. Speaking of crystal balls, Tom, didn't you say that you worked for Miss Cleo at one point? That's where you get the
Yeah.
nickname? Did you know that there's like a huge Lifetime special being advertised on her? There's like a documentary and then like an interview portion with her on the
Well,
Lifetime channel.
I never met her, but I know she was not Jamaica. So
Yeah.
it was from the hood in South Central Los Angeles, to
Yeah.
my knowledge.
Yeah, I thought of you when I saw it the other night, and they just kept showing it and showing it, and I was like, "Oh man, I got to mention it on the show." And I was thinking about doing it last week, but I was like, I forgot.
So there was a documentary on her, or was it the Psychic Readers Network?
It's on her whole thing. Like, it's all about Miss Cleo, and there's like two separate installments of it that they're doing. It's like one that it looks like they're just like a question and answer session with her, and the other is like an actual documentary about the whole thing. And it hasn't aired yet. It's coming up, I think, like August 11th or something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This will be interesting because that network um, did not have a good ending.
Lifetime? It's still going. What do you mean?
There were some
Oh,
very,
the
I would say,
Psychic Network.
questionable
Oh, okay. Yeah.
business practices
Yeah.
of the owners.
Yeah, it's kind of like an American Greed episode, I think, about how it was all fraud. But
What happened too was, well, I'll make it quick because we got a lot to talk about tonight. But when the 900 numbers stopped, the entire industry changed a lot because at that point people had to pay up front,
yeah,
and for the 900 numbers, people had figured out a way to beat the system.
hmm,
So things changed a lot. The Psychic Readers Network crashed and burned pretty
right.
soon after that happened.
Yeah.
It was wild while it lasted.
Well,
Don't get me wound up on that. We have other things to talk about.
well, you need to add another $5 to continue. It's like time. Anyway, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. You should check it out. Lifetime Network. It's good channel. Yeah, it's like kind of women based. Like it's all about women usually, women issues and all that kind of stuff. But it's a pretty big story of a woman who was up to no good. Anyway, so last week, I said I was going to do it. I was going to break the slump. I did with one bet. Although I placed about 15 on this UFC card, and I was suckered. I was suckered by the experts into picking people that I was rooting for rather than I knew were going to win. But I did have one smart card, 7 picks in a parlay that was plus 29.99 odds. Sounds like a sale at Walmart. 29.99. But yeah, $5 turned into 154. And the first leg was on the Gaziev fight. The Gaziev versus Dontel Mays. A lot of people thought that was like going to be a real quick knockout. But I started looking at Gaziev's record, and it turns out he does go more than one round quite a bit. So I did over 2.5 rounds on that one. I don't have the individual odds on these. I just have the total odds. And then Azamat Mirzakhanov. And by the way, Gaziev won by decision. Mirzakhanov, he was light heavyweight fight, seventh fight of the night. He won by knockout in the second round. I just had him money line over Alonzo Minifield. That was another one they were definitely calling for that to be a knockout. Joel Alvarez on the money line. Joel, let's see, where is he? Joel was the eighth fight of the night, right after Mirzakhanov, and he won in the third round, late in the third round, in a real barn burner with Elvis Brenner. and it was 3 minutes and 36 seconds into the third round. And I had Mackenzie Dern. A lot of people were expecting her to maybe get a submission, but as I always say, as a caveat to every bettor out there, female fights go to the distance a lot. Go the distance. So, most of the time you're going to pick a female to win. You should probably just go ahead and do the decision, unless she's an absolute knockout artist. So Dern won by decision. So Moneyline was a good bet there. And then, of course, Chiesa, I only had outright to win on one parlay, unfortunately. I really thought that he was too cold off the shelf to really do any good, and he looked phenomenal. Even before the fight started, he looked amped. And he took out Tony Ferguson by rear naked choke in the very first round, just 3 minutes and 44 seconds into the fight, and just looked really good. It looked like it was a tune-up fight for him, and like he's to never stop training. So I'm looking forward.
Now here's the question: how long will Tony's contract keep going with the UFC? He's 0-7 now. His last 7 fights.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, but he laid one glove down after the fight. So that was his way of saying he's basically retired, but he's not giving up hope of coming back one more time. But he's gonna go talk to the family and everything like that. But I think he's pretty much done. But that was a unique way of saying I'm gone, but I'm not out. I'm down, but I'm not out. So he might come back for one more. They really got to give him a tomato can. I mean, I think a lot of people were pulling for him to win this one by miracle. More experts than you would expect.
And he is an example of woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Right.
Because if that Khabib fight would have happened, I'm not saying he would have won, but he would have been competitive. He was at a peak right then.
Right.
And wasn't meant to be.
And then my other 2 picks were the co-main and the main event. And you got to go, if you're smart, you got to go with Nurmagomedov and Magomedov. It sounds repetitive, but their styles are a little bit different. Magomedov is a little bit more of a knockout artist, but he couldn't knock out Olashaychuk. He ended up winning the decision there. And he looked a little bit kind of discombobulated at times, but it wasn't really the point where he was losing at any time. But he definitely looked like Olashaychuk could have got lucky at some point and clocked him pretty hard because he just was sloppy at times. I didn't like his fighting style this time. But most of the time he just goes out there and he's like a seek and destroy missile. This time he just took his time and kind of plodded through, and didn't really make me nervous. But at the same time, I was like, wow, I thought this guy was better than this. Especially for a guy that was talking about retiring before the fight even started if he didn't win. Then Umar Nurmagomedov. The real reason why I didn't win a lot of bets on this one was because Corey Sandhagen was another one that a lot of these experts that put their videos out on the picks, they've trained with him, they know him. Nurmagomedov is kind of like a foreign entity to all these people because they're all American. And, Sandhagen definitely looked like he could have won on his best day, but Nurmagomedov just kind of adjusted really well after a tough first round and just kind of put it on lockdown. Just used his wrestling to his advantage, and had some great advice from his corner, which obviously included his cousin Khabib. And I heard a vicious rumor today that Khabib is going to be fighting Floyd Mayweather in Moscow in November. You guys hear anything about that?
He's going to be fighting Mayweather as boxing?
In boxing.
Or MMA?
In boxing in Moscow. I don't think it's true.
What a joke.
And he owes all this money in Russia, so it was posted July 29th.
Well, who would want to even pay to see that?
Right.
I mean, if it was MMA, it would be another story. But for me, it was never a boxer. Wow.
The only way it happens either anyway is if they garnish Khabib's wages from because he owes so much tax money. But anyway, Nurmagomedov did a great job. He went all 5 rounds. Definitely frustrated the hell out of Corey Sandhagen. And Corey's a great wrestler too. And there were some amazing scrambles in that fight. And I've been watching wrestling on the Olympics a little bit. And those guys have got nothing on these two as far as scrambles. I saw a heavyweight wrestling match with the U.S. competitor the other day where he basically had just a few minutes left to score a few points, and he never once even tried to go for a takedown. He just stood head to head with the other guy, arms around his neck, and just like, I don't know what it was. It was like, a dance. Back and forth, back and forth. Never even went for one takedown. Never went for the legs, never changed levels, nothing. And I was like, is this guy this tired or is this different rules that I'm not used to? Because it baffled me. And then I started watching today, and there was these guys from Iowa and everything. This guy from Iowa. There was a couple girls that were wrestling like we used to wrestle in high school, and I'm just, yep, definitely wasn't the rules. It was just this guy had no game against the Iranian. The Iranians actually have a really good wrestling program. A lot of male and
Well, the
females.
Dagestan guys are so aggressive. You know what they're going to do, and they do it.
Right,
Almost like, yeah, well, our strategy is very simple. What are you going to do to stop us?
right.
That's the fascinating thing. I'm sure that Flanagan, he had good defense on the ground. You got to give him credit for that.
Oh, very good.
He had good defense, but as you said a long time ago, Rich, you don't get points for defense in MMA.
No, not usually. Unless it's takedown defense, and you're a striker. And then you kind of get points for that, but you still got to use your striking after the takedown defense. And speaking of defense, Figueiredo put on a masterclass against Marlon Vera there, getting that unanimous decision too. He wasn't on my winning parlay, but I did pick him more than a few times over. I favored him big time over Marlon Vera, and he got the job done. Marlon Vera just has not looked the same since losing to Sean O'Malley. Talked about
Yeah,
McKenzie.
maybe he never really got over losing to O'Malley.
Yeah.
His career not going good.
And then we had the one first round knockout of the night was Kyle Fernandez over Muhammad Yahya, 4 minutes and 45 seconds into the first round. And boy, that was one the experts nailed. They were really trashing Yahya as washed up and nothing special, and he proved them right big time. Shamil Gazia, we talked about him. Guram Kutaladze beating Jordan Vucenic by unanimous decision. Vucenic fooled the shit out of me. I made like 3 live bets on his ass because he looked good early on. And then Kutaladze just squeaked out the unanimous decision and dominated the third round basically with his wrestling and got it done. But Vucenic just had no gas tank after a certain point. He started off really good, looked decent, and just shit the bed totally. Sam Hughes uh, beating Victoria Dudikova by split decision. I caught that one starting in the middle of it. So I really didn't see a lot of what happened before the third round, but Sam Hughes basically, talk about gas tank, had a little bit extra gas in her tank for the third round to get that win. And before that, Jai Herbert won a unanimous decision over Rolando Bedoya. That was pretty in line with most of the experts. And then Cedric Dumas over Dennis Chilulan. That was my lock of the week last week. After seeing Chilulan in Boston, I knew he was going to lose this fight, but I was surprised. I was really surprised by how many experts were thinking that he was going to do much better. And Dumas didn't really look spectacular. He basically was able to do a little bit better wrestling and a couple good strikes here and there to win that fight, but really good matchup for Tululin after losing a couple bad ones. He kind of needed somebody that he could compete a little more with, but I thought it was going to end quicker, so that was another one that killed a lot of my parlays. I had under 1.5 rounds for that one in most of my parlays, so that was a parlay killer. It always sucks to have that one right off the bat. That kills like 6, 7 bets, even though they're only $5 each. It sucks. And you'll like this one, Tony. The other night I was doing some MLB betting, and I said to myself, geez, I haven't won enough tonight, so I'm going to put $5 on a couple home run hitters in the LA versus Phillies game. And this was like, I want to say the 7th inning or something like that. So 6th or 7th inning, I want to say. And I put $5 on Teoscar Hernandez to get a home run. That was plus 950 odds at the time. And then I put $5 on Schwarber to hit a home run, which was plus 1100. Wouldn't you know it? Like within 20 minutes of making these bets, both of them hit. Because the one inning, Teoscar Hernandez hit one, and then the next one, Schwarber just dinged it off the foul pole, and it was like, I think when Hernandez hit his, the Phillies were losing, and then when Schwarber hit his, the Phillies were winning. After that, they came right back and won that game.
That game the other night. Obviously they've been late, and I've been doing my kind of early to go to the city. So like first game I missed totally. I had like first inning on, they were winning, then they ended up losing. The next game, I crashed, and then I heard Schwarber hit one off the foul pole, and then basically, I don't know, Schwarber, here's how of a tear he is right now.
He hit one the
He's
next
5 for his last 5, 4 home runs and a double.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kicking myself.
In the 9th inning, the other night, off the foul pole.
Yeah.
Then the next game, he had led off the game, first bat, home run, and the next bat, double, and then home run and home run. Not doing too bad.
Right.
Yeah, so if you would have bet him last night, he had 3 of them.
Oh, jeez. I don't think you get paid for each one.
Yeah.
Unless you had, if you had 3+ home runs, I think you could bet that on some places, and you would definitely win a lot.
It's funny. I'll have to send it to you guys. A few months ago, I was at a concert down in Philadelphia, and the one local radio DJ from the morning show was there. So I go over and introduce myself because that's what I do. I'm talking to this guy a little bit, and he's just saying, let me interview you for a segment on our show. It's called Early on the Street. And a caller will have to call in and match your answers. Okay. So, the one question was, who on the Phillies right now would you want to sit down and have a beer with? And I was like, Kyle Schwarber. I'm like, yeah, he looks like he can bring some back. And last year I was at a game, and someone asked me a question. They said, if you were in a bar fight and you could have anybody on the Phillies on your team, who would you pick? And I'm like, Kyle Schwarber. I said, because he throws right-handed, but he bats left. And, I mean, he has unbelievable power. And I'm like, I could see him throwing a left hook and knocking somebody's head off. I'm like, yeah, he would definitely be my backup in a bar fight.
Nice.
Yeah, some guys you can just tell. You have that sixth sense.
Either that or
the way he swings the bat left-handed, because he generates amazing power. I could see that left hook coming out of, and just clobbering guys. So I said, we'll get in a bar fight, then we'll go drink.
Nice.
That'll be perfect.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, we had some boxing matches on Saturday. I did actually watch a lot of the Crawford fight, and I really thought that he lost that fight.
You know what? I've been reading a lot of reports. I was going to originally order that card. The fact that it started at 4:30 in the afternoon, I had dinner plans. I was like, if it was started like a normal fight card at 8 o'clock, or I would order it. I'm like, 4:30. I'm like, what's the main event going to be? Like 8 o'clock at night? Little did I know the main event will be at like 1 in the morning.
Basically, they had an Eminem concert
I
beforehand.
mean,
I mean, what do you expect? It was
I'm
ridiculous.
so, like I said, I didn't. I was tracking some of the fight online, so
Yeah,
I see Darren Anderson, which we'll go into in a minute. And I saw about the Andy Ruiz and Daryl Miller fight. And I'm tracking all that, you know. Then I see the Pitbull Creed fight, and I'm like, okay, but I said, okay, when's the Crawford fight coming on?
yeah.
And I sit and refresh every few minutes, and nothing. I'm like, is my top down?
Mhm.
I went to another site. Went to ESPN. I'm finding nothing. Finally, they're getting in the ring now. They're getting in the ring now. Like, they started like 8 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, full time slot.
yeah. Technically,
And then
I think it
when
actually
he was
lost
like,
money.
then finally, I never just in the ring. I finally cracked. But I read a lot about it, and I talked to a friend of mine at work. He's a big fight guy, and he felt Crawford won, but he felt this guy was um so herky jerky and awkward, and that he was hard to look good against.
Right.
Um,
Well, Crawford
and
never
sometimes you got
came
a guy like that
close
that
to getting him in
that his
trouble.
style is not conducive to making a good fight.
Right.
And well, yeah, and I'll ask you guys on this. They said like he used was a lot of movement and was kept Crawford off balance because it was so unorthodox. But at the same time, he did not throw. He did not throw enough punches. And sometimes we'll say, okay, well, he was the champ, and Crawford needs to take the belt from him. But you can't say, well, if you didn't, if you go out there and you do nothing, and your opponent does a little bit, well, the person who does a little bit is going to win. Well, he didn't take it. He didn't dominate. He didn't take the belt from the champion. He won the fight.
Hmm. Yeah.
He looked very ordinary,
Yeah, he did.
very ordinary, and he went up in weight. I mean, the whole theme of that night is weight does matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe that novice people would think, well, it was only what 7 pounds, but that makes a difference. I mean, he was slower, he's older, he'd been inactive for 13 months, and to me, it was close. Put it that way, and I think 116 to 112 was out of line. But I can also understand it because those rounds were close. But he looked ordinary. Never,
Yeah, I think the
never
only reason
handed any big
Madrimov
shots.
didn't.
Not the same Crawford from a year ago.
Right.
Not that devastating Crawford against Spence. So,
Right.
and I think he lost the Canelo fight. I think that's off because that's a whole other topic too. But what's wrong with Canelo? How about two more divisions going up?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that Madrimov actually fought a lot of the rounds a little bit flat-footed. He wasn't really turning his punches that well. Wasn't on his toes enough to really put the power behind his punches, but he definitely, I think, was outlanding him in a lot of the rounds and kind of yeah, putting him out of his game, doing a lot of the movement to confuse him. And I thought that Crawford really took too long to catch up to him. I thought Crawford was doing better towards the end of the fight, but at the same time, like I felt like he won that more on his name than on his talent. Uh,
Yeah, like I said, it should have. And again, like Hearn said, the minute that first score was read, 116, 112, you knew at that point. You just
yeah,
knew.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, you just knew in the sport we love with the corruption. We
it
just
was
knew.
without
Uh,
was not going to happen. And the big upset, more than any other fight of the night. Well, actually, there was two heavyweights. The heavyweights was kind of an upset. You had an undefeated fighter going against a guy with one loss. But after that, the co-main event, Isaac Pitbull Cruz was not expected to lose to this Jose Valenzuela guy who only had 15 fights, pro fights coming in. was for a WBA World Super Lightweight title, and Isaac Cruz just got schooled. His little short reach did not produce on the night. He just couldn't get close enough, and Valenzuela just boxed a perfect fight. Hard to believe he
Yeah,
lost two of his last six.
that's the word, Rick. Very well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the word. A perfect fight. He was just flawless. And you kept thinking, it could it go on for 12 rounds,
yeah,
but it did.
yeah, yeah. He was really masterful. And the big surprise was Andy Ruiz drawing, majority draw with Jarrell Miller.
And lucky to get,
Yeah,
if you guys watch,
I didn't see that one. I
That's
bet
the
on it,
point from what I was
so it got
following
voided.
on there that both guys came in heavy, but Andy Ruiz came in heavier than he wanted to, where Del Miller came in heavy lighter than he had. I mean, that was what, nearly 600 combined pounds in that ring. And yeah, Ruiz, and we said this last week. The one fighter I always think of when I think of Andy Ruiz is Joe Hip. Joe Hip was a very tough, very skilled fighter that always looked heavy. Even when he was in shape, he always looked flatty. And um, and I think that sometimes that would hurt him because you got, and sometimes it would actually help him because guys would have, they would take him lightly because he just looked like he was like kind of out of shape dope. Where, Ruiz, for being a heavy guy, has deceptively fast hands and good movement. But when you get so heavy, the hand speed wasn't the problem, but he was big, and his movement was hot. Ruiz in the beginning, from every account that I was following, was winning because of his faster hands and
sir. Yeah, early on.
fatigued. Yeah, then he fatigued.
Yeah,
I mean, the gas tank wasn't there. And look at his inactivity. I mean, every fighter has a shelf life. And you can't go for a couple of years and expect to, I mean, he looked very sharp early on. But I really think Miller should have had that.
yeah. And the other 10-0 guy fighting on that card, David Morrell, um, beat the more experienced guy instead of losing to him like Israel did against Terrence. David Morrell beating Radivoj Kalajdzic, 29-2 coming in, looking for win number 30th. Did not get it. Win number 30, I should say. And so the vacant WBA World Light Heavyweight title goes to a guy who's just 10-0. David Morrell, light heavyweight.
Here's another example of weight between 168 and 175. Morrell was not the killer in that fight that he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you can run him back for moving up, maybe, but you kind of knew he was piling up the points, but he didn't get the knockout.
Right.
And we see the same thing with Benavidez, about a month ago. So weight matters. Wow.
Yes, it does. And the one of his two losses, Kalajdzic, whatever the heck his pronunciation. One of his two losses is to Iceman John Scully's boy, Archer Beterbiev. And I remember seeing that knockout.
Yeah.
That was vicious back in 2019.
Where did it go up?
Oh, no shit. No, it was in Stockton, California. Beterbiev?
What, the better be a Galactic fight?
Yeah. That was in
Stockton, California was in Philadelphia, North Philly.
Stockton Arena. It says. Are you sure you're thinking of the same fight?
Saying our third better be was it October of 2019 against Galactic?
No,
Light heavyweight title fight?
it was May 4th, 2000.
Oh, you said May.
many.
I thought you were talking about the unification fight in 2019.
No.
Um, that one, no. Then I'm confused. That better be Evan Glock. It was Cobra 19.
Kalajdzic. I know it's a fucked up name, but hey, some people have fucked up names. And then probably the one fight that went the rounds with the highlight reel on social media was Martin Bacoli beating Jared Anderson, who had come in undefeated 17-0. And it just took 5 rounds for Martin to take him out. And boy,
He had him down in the first round. I mean, it was,
talk about gas
he had
tanks.
him hurt early.
Man, those two
He
looked like they were huffing and
Jared
puffing.
Anderson could not get away from the uppercut.
Yeah, those heavyweights looked every bit their weight, and they looked like they were both tired. But Bacoli had a little bit more power left in the tank, and it doesn't have to be pretty; just has to be effective. So, that was Martin.
Henderson had a lot of heart. I mean, I'll give him credit for never giving up, but that was definitely a good stop.
Yeah,
No argument about that.
nope.
So the question is, where about Anderson? I mean, mostly remember a couple of years ago he was supposed to be the great American hope.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was a big prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, one loss doesn't end a career. But so many people have been predicting this, saying he hasn't fought anyone, he's overrated, and see where he goes from here.
I mean, he could not get away from that uppercut. I mean, that uppercut
Yeah.
after him once at the time.
yeah. That was good stuff all around. I
And
lost.
they were calling him the monster. The opponent called him the monster from the Congo.
Yeah,
Where does how does he tie in now?
yeah.
His stock's on the move up. I mean, because he is, he's ponderous. He doesn't have a lot of hand speed.
He reminds me actually of Samuel Peter
I mean,
back when he was big in the division. He definitely fights a little bit like him. But yeah, that was kind of a shocker. Jared Anderson was a heavy betting favorite, and you pretty much had to bet him by knockout to get good odds. And then same goes with Terrence Crawford. He was such a betting favorite. You had to go. The only way you could get positive odds is if you went by decision to win. But I parlayed that with Andy Ruiz winning and Jared Anderson winning, so that went nowhere. The Andy Ruiz bet got voided because when they draw, if you pick one side or the other, they just void it, which is kind of good sometimes, but other times you're like, what the hell? And then the other Andy Cruz, Cruz to a TKO in the 7th round, came in with just 3 professional fights, fighting for the IBF International Lightweight title against Antonio Moran, who had 37 fights, 30 wins, 6 losses, now 7, and 1 draw. So yeah, that was for the IBF International Lightweight title, and Andy Cruz is now 4-0 with the title. Sounds like another guy we know in boxing world. What's his name? The Ukrainian dude. You know who I'm talking about? You guys know who I'm talking about. I know you do. The Ukrainian guy. No, had all kinds of amateur fights, and then he went up and he was fighting for a title at 4-0.
Lomachenko?
Lomachenko. Yes, I was drawing a blank. Leave it to the Rain Man of boxing to figure it out. Finally.
I was drawing a blank on that one for a minute. I was like, I know the champion.
Yeah. Lomachenko. Okay, so upcoming stuff. We talked about last week. We talked about Tony's favorite Olympic fighter, and she's fighting for the gold tomorrow, or should I say he? The main Khalif.
Yeah.
41-9 is her record. Fighting Lu Yang in the gold medal match, who is 25-7 at welterweight. And boy, this the only thing that bumped this out of the social media dominance was this whole Waltz versus JD Vance military record thing.
Yeah.
Because this was crazy, crazy content across all social media platforms. And, there was a lot of talk that, she is definitely a female. She's not a transvestite. She's not a hermaphrodite. She's full female. She just has high testosterone. She's got a Y chromosome or X chromosomes. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those situations where, like, it didn't matter what anybody said to explain it. People were still pissed off. Um, and I mean, if you look back to the time when the UFC allowed testosterone replacement therapy, people would have to get an exemption usually to use it. Uh, she's not applied for any kind of exemption, and maybe even if it's natural, like you cannot have elevated levels of testosterone. You just can't do it. So yeah, it sucks that it's not your fault that that's your reality, but it is
Can I
definitely an
ask
unfair
another
advantage.
question? Can I ask another stupid question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when people were, going back and arguing on this back and forth, I look on things on social media. But unfortunately, on this one, I didn't have a chance to, I only saw like the one screenshot, and I was unfortunately I was at work. Then I didn't think about it really until now. Somebody pulled up her record on BoxRec.
Yep.
And they're like, look, she's like 9-5, which means she lost 5 other women, or she lost to 5 women. So clearly, she doesn't have that much of an advantage. 5 women have beaten her. Then it got me thinking, and let me get your guys to weigh in on this. I've never seen an amateur record on BoxRec.
Well, they're there now.
And
They're
as
there
far
now.
as I know, professional fighters are not able to fight in the Olympics as of yet. I mean, that could eventually change.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, good point, man.
Yeah, they just
Yeah,
started. They
good
started
point.
posting amateur fights, and they also do the bare knuckle boxing, on BoxRec. I want to say it was like 2 or 3 years ago that they started doing the amateur fights on there. Um, I never thought that they were on there either, but now you do the schedule and the results, and you'll see it says box-am next to the
Wow.
amateur ones. And her
Yeah,
record,
that was I was unfamiliar with.
her full amateur
They usually
record
just
has nine,
like I used
nine
to look at
losses
a
in it.
fighter from the 40s, but you'd never see their amateur. You look at Sugar Ray Robinson right now, you would see his amazing professional career, but you wouldn't see his amateur. If you looked at Vasily Lomachenko, you wouldn't see his 396 amateur fights. At least I think you would. Let's the boxers
Right.
make some major changes.
Well, she actually lost five of her first 6 fights. This Khalif woman. She
Well,
she also lost to some tomato cans, but the most experienced fighter she ever faced was back in 2021. Mira Potkonen had a record of 228 wins, 34 losses, and 1 draw, and she lost by unanimous decision to her. Then Kelly
yeah,
Harrington came in at 71-16, and she lost to her by unanimous decision. But,
I'm going to ask another question just because my curiosity, there's 2 things I'm just inquisitive about this. The certain pieces of the puzzle are not adding up.
right.
So, there's apparently, because I don't know, and I will never say that I am a medical professional. I will never say that I was a biology major. I said you don't want to take the advice of somebody that once said that the makeup of an atom are protons, neutrons, and electrolytes. But if there's it could be this human being has a natural growth, which unfortunately some people their body is differently, secretes differently. But is there if there is any type of taking anything that could I know in her home country trying to change genders is illegal and you could be put to death or whatever it is or in prison. But could you be taking something that helps secrete this hormone, which would be like almost like a football player taking steroids for a game.
Yeah.
It's a performance enhancing drug.
Well, I mean, basically the testing that she went through before that got her disqualified showed high levels of testosterone, and then it came out that she had X chromosomes, and it's basically like a little building block of DNA in her system that is male. You know, technically like would be expected in a male, but it's in a female. Um, which is weird. I mean, it's hard to explain how that even happens. Uh, but apparently she's been recognized as a female since birth. She's a woman on her passport, you know. She has not had any surgeries. She's not on any hormones. Um, but to me, I mean, it's a black and white issue because, like I said, there was the TUE, they call them, testosterone use exemptions in the UFC for a little while. Then they got rid of it. They got rid of it. I don't really know the technical reasons why, but they got rid of it because obviously they probably thought that some people that were using it were either not using it properly or putting themselves in danger or having an unfair advantage. So basically nowadays you get tested before and after fights. You know, if you have a high testosterone, they think you cheated. They look for a substance that is banned. Here, you know, you could say, okay, you popped for high testosterone, but they wouldn't be able to find a substance in that case. So what do you do? I guess you just let her fight according to the Olympic rules. It's just weird. It's a very weird situation. I can't explain it. It was misinterpreted at the beginning as, you know, she's a male fighting as a female. And granted, people were upset about it for that reason before they knew the whole story. But even the most famous Olympian who is transgender said that it was wrong. Bruce Jenner, aka Caitlyn Jenner, was on Fox News the other night, and she basically blasted the whole thing of allowing these two questionable women to be involved in the Olympics. So, I mean, this is a guy that was an Olympian as a male, an Olympic gold medalist. So, if you can take stock in anybody's opinion, it's Caitlyn's. So I guess that to me was the be all end all of the debate about whether this is fair or not. Um, is it right, on the other hand, to just disqualify her when that's the career she chose? I don't know. I don't really think you can say that either. It's one of those catch-22s. I mean, it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't. Um, but yeah, I think she's got one hell of a defamation case on her hands if she had enough lawyers to sue everybody in the world who was calling her a male. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. She has come out with a statement about bullying athletes. I just saw a headline on it today, but I haven't read anything about it. But yeah, she fights tomorrow against Lu Yang, who's 25-7 at welterweight. Her record officially is 41-9. So maybe she'll take loss number 10, and that will appease everybody who thinks that she's cheating by even being involved. Well, it is what it is. One of those issues that gets people talking. And boy, it was everywhere at one point. Everybody was posting about it. Anyway, Got some big fights this weekend in Vegas, the fight capital of the world, really. There on DAZN, we've got a couple number twos in the world fighting with titles up for grabs. The WBC interim world super welterweight title up for grabs between Virgil Ortiz Jr., undefeated, 21-0, and Sergey Bohachuk, 24-1 at super welterweight. I have not seen much of him. He's number 7 in the world, but that should be a good fight. They're calling it a 5-star fight, which is the most stars you can have on BoxRec. And then the guy that pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the year, his sister is fighting for the IBF World Flyweight title, Gabriela Fondora. 13-0. She's number 2 in the world, fighting number 4. It's a two-minute rounder, 10 rounds for the IBF World Female Flyweight title. Fondora 13-0. Daniela Asenio is 16-3-3, so probably wouldn't be much of an upset there if she wins for Fondora. Then we have a big female fight for the WBC Interim World Super Welterweight title, female. Cecilia Brækhus, 37-2 with 1 draw, has had a little bit of difficulty, had one draw and the 2 losses in her last 6. So 1-3, lost 2, and had a draw. And she is fighting Maricela Cornejo, who is 19-6. Probably not, that's scary to a woman like Brækhus. So it should probably go her way. At super welterweight. She's going to take that interim title. Then Kenneth Sims Jr., 20-2 with 1 draw, fighting Jair Voltieira, 17-3 at super lightweight. And we got was kind of a mismatch as far as rankings go. Charles Conwell coming in at 19-0, looking for win number 20. And he's number 15th in the world, fighting number 160, Chiari Gray. 18-6, lost 3 of his last 6, and that's super welterweight. Then we go to ESPN Plus, and that's from Albuquerque, New Mexico, on Saturday. Luis Alberto Lopez, 30-2 against Angelo Leo, who is 24-1. That's for the IBF World Featherweight title. And somebody's O's got to go in the other big fight on this card. Brian Flores, 26-0-1, fighting Lindolfo Delgado, who is 20-0. And that's about it for the big fights this weekend. Flores got 15 knockouts to go with his 26 wins at super lightweight. Who is the other fighter I'm thinking of named Flores? Isn't there a guy that does commentary now?
BJ Flores.
BJ Flores, yeah.
Cruiserweight.
Cruiserweight. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he was undefeated, but he is.
I don't think so.
He is a fighter I saw a lot when he was fighting. He might still be fighting. I don't think he's actually officially retired.
Yeah, I haven't seen him fighting in a while. I know he was doing some of the ESPN broadcasts. He'd be in the booth, and then he'd be on the announce on the mic.
Right.
And that was a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he still does it for other promotions too. Dana White's Contender Series. We got to talk about some commentary from Dana White over the UFC lawsuit, the class action case that we ended on last week. There's some new developments on that front, and he actually had an interview with Kevin Iole, who I hate with a passion because he stole some information from me back in the day. And then he became a big time star, like right after it, when I was breaking all the news on the UFC owning Giants and everything like that. He was running the Wrestling Observer, and he put out some story that just basically took my information, and because he had a better platform at the time, he got all the credit for it. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so he has become like this big Yahoo expert and everything like that. And so he had Dana White on his podcast that he does. And he's like, I know this is an uncomfortable question, but I got to ask you about the antitrust lawsuit and the judge throwing out that decision to allow the settlement. And so Dana White drops a little bit of the bomb on everybody and says, I think this is getting personal. And he says, I don't know what Lorenzo Fertitta and I did to this guy in high school, but we went to high school with this judge. And I'm like, what? That was like the Bishop Gorman connection was one of the big parts of my science story. It just blows my mind that it's still part of the story. This Bishop Gorman High School in Vegas. The Fertittas love to give money to the football program. I think their son played there. One of their sons that ended up in big football college programs. Um, but basically, Bishop Gorman produced Dana White, both Fertitta brothers. The founder of Zions's wife went there. That's how the founder of Zions got connected to Dana White in the first place, because they used to hang out a lot. And one of the stories I heard from uh, somebody accusing the people at Zions of fraud said that Dana White and the founder of Zions's wife used to take jet trips to Hawaii to buy all the shirts and shorts and stuff like that Zions would sell for clothing. Like they just buy it in bulk over in Hawaii for some reason, and just take a free trip on a jet, and then come back with all this stuff. And they had something with a backdoor check going on, which I can't even remember the details of. But basically, they were somehow making money off of it on the back end, and so they would get this cheap stuff, and then they would sell it with Zions branding on it. But I think they were screwing each other. Dana White and the founder of Zions, Russell Pike, his wife. I think they were screwing each other, and they were doing it in high school too. So that was part of it, and she probably got him to work with her husband just because of that relationship, which blows my mind. I mean, just the amount of fraud that was involved back then. You have to remember back then when all this was going on, Dana White was not a millionaire. He was losing the Fertitta's money trying to build the UFC. I think they lost like $40 million in the first 5 or 6 years trying to fix that mess that was created by the original owners when it was called human cockfighting and all that. Even though they really weren't the ones to fix the rules, as the big Zuffa myth goes, that they were the ones that revolutionized the rules. That's not really true. It was a bunch of other people that had been involved in MMA that revolutionized the rules. But anyway, long story short, uh, Dana says that he thinks this judge is pissed off at him because of something that happened in high school. Um, which, I mean, if you ask for a judge to recuse himself, it's probably never come up. Well, I went to high school with him, so he has to step down. You have to have more than that. You have to have a financial connection, something like that. But the crazy part of it is the same judge was on Patricia's case, Patricia Morrison, Tommy Morrison's wife, and shot her case down. But all of a sudden, he's all for the fighters in this class action case. Just very weird. But that's Dana White's take on it. Instead of getting upset about the details of the case or anything in particular, he's pointing fingers at the guy going to high school with him as the reason this thing is not going his way. It's par for the course with him. And a couple weeks ago, he was really getting on the fighters for not taking the upped bonuses seriously. So he's getting on a lot of people's last nerves lately with some of his shit coming out of his mouth. But anyway, the Dana White Contender Series is going to be premiering next Tuesday, August 13th on ESPN Plus at 7 p.m. And that is one of my favorite little cards to bet on. I made quite a bit of money on the Dana White Contender Series events that I've been able to bet on. And it's a lot easier to predict with these guys. One of those guys is actually fighting this weekend on the UFC card, and he is favored by knockout. But that's another thing about it is you get to see these guys before they really start getting into the nitty gritty of UFC fighting. So when it comes to betting on them when they get to the UFC, you know a little bit more about them because you've seen them on the Contender Series. You know their fighting style. And he's one of those guys, Diniz, D-I-N-I-Z. He's one of the guys that really loves his first round knockouts. So it's one of the ones that MMA Play 365's AI, if they predict a knockout, sure as shit, it's going to be in the first round. They might get that one right. We'll get into that. I've got the whole breakdown of that. They do have a couple questionable calls on there compared to the videos that I've watched of the other expert picks. Probably the worst one I want to point out. They had a last minute fight change to Chris Gutierrez's opponent, and it's a guy named Quang Lee, who I've never heard of. I don't know if he's related to Kung Lee, but he has the exact same last name. L.E. Quang Bang Lee from Wisconsin. And he hit every one of his fights have been in the feeder league. He does have a couple first round knockouts in a row in the LFA level. A couple first round submissions earlier on in his career, but Chris Gutierrez has been in the UFC for quite a while. Has a couple losses in his last three fights, but I would not pick Quang Lee in this one. I just wouldn't. Not to say that he can't win, but yeah, they've got a top 6 lineup of just win, so just money line bets, and Quang Lee is leg number 3, and they have him at a 59.89% win percentage, according to their AI there over on MMA Play 365. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. Gutierrez, I think, is the better fighter. He just hasn't looked that great in two of his last 3. He fought some pretty tough guys, and he went the distance with them. So it happens at that UFC level. And this guy has never fought anybody in the UFC. 8-0 is nothing when you haven't fought anybody in the UFC. So we'll see how that one goes, but I definitely disagree with MMA Play 365 on that one. We're going to start out with the female fight. First fight of the night, straw weights. This one's from the Apex in Vegas on Saturday night. We got Stephanie Luciano. She is 5-1-1, and she's fighting Talita Alencar, who's 5-0-1. And Luciano's the big favorite in this one, according to the experts that I watched. And basically, she would have won the last fight if it had been a 5-rounder, because she had really turned on the Jets in the 3rd round and it became a draw. So that's Talita Alencar's only draw. So now Luciano is favored to win this one. I would say probably your safest bet on that is to go the distance. I always say that, but it really is. It's probably going to go the distance. It went the distance last time. Probably going to go the distance this time. Although, because of the draw, you might have that situation where one girl or the other is going to have it on her mind. I can't let this go to the judges. I got to finish it. First fight of the night, female fight. I don't think that's going to happen. And then everybody's on Yusuf Zalal. Have not seen anybody pick Jarno Aarons in the second fight of the night. Zalal comes in at 14-5-1 at featherweight. Aarons 14-5-1, same exact record. But yeah, Zalal is the heavy favorite by everybody that I have seen do picks. ESPN Bet also has Bilal by decision. So not just money line, by decision. And we got Jonata Denise, the guy I was just talking about. He's a heavyweight. 7-0 is his record. He's fighting Carl Williams, who's 10-1. This one is a little bit back and forth. Not everybody is on Denise, but those who are on Denise have him by knockout. You want to know why? Because all 7 of his wins have come by knockout. And 6 of them have been in the first round. One of them was on the Contender Series, and his first official UFC fight was a knockout in the second round. So it was the first time he got out of the first. And that was Austin Lane. So Carl Williams is a little bit more well-rounded. He's 10-1. He's got 3 knockouts and 7 decisions. 1 submission loss, never been knocked out himself. But yeah, he has not been in the UFC all that long. He hasn't beat like a who's who of the UFC. Lucas Brzeski, I guess, probably the toughest guy he's faced. Beat him by unanimous decision back in 2023, March 11th. And he made his way onto the Contender Series with a decision win over Jimmy Lawson. But I like Denise in this one. I think he's going to take it. We'll go over the MMA 365 AF picks, but they have Carl Williams somewhere, I think. Where do they have him? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. No, Damon Jackson, that's what I'm thinking of. But anyway, Carl Williams does have a underdog chance here, but the basic way around picking one guy or the other in this one, if you have doubts, ESPN Best Bets has. They believe Jackson money line. Out. No, that's in a different fight. Williams. Where's Williams? They've got Williams just basically money line, but since Williams does have way more decisions, I would go Williams by decision or Denise by knockout, which is what they call alternate choice bet, alternate decision bet method of winning. So you can pick both guys to win by different ways. You can't pick the same way. You can't be like, although there are ways to bet. I guess this fight will end in a knockout, which I didn't even know until tonight. But they talked about that. I've never been able to find that bet. The closest I've been able to find is the fight will end in the first 60 seconds, which I should have bet on Astral a little while ago. Anyway, so Carl Williams, Jonata Denise, that is a very evenly matched fight. I think Denise should be able to take it just based on his natural talent and power. He's just got crazy power. But yeah, that's going to be a good one. And we got Carol Rosa versus Pani Kianzad. And talk about one to go the distance. This is definitely one of those to go the distance fights. You don't always get the best odds on him, but Carol Rosa is predicted to win by decision. She wins all of her fights by decisions pretty much. So that one's across the board. Couple big time experts picked that. Not even money line, just decision. Toshiomi Kazama coming in at 10-4 against Charalampos Gregorio, who is 8-4 at bantamweight. And nobody is giving Kazama a chance. Everybody's on Gregorio moneyline on this one. And then we've got Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. I don't think she's any relation to Michael, but she is 6-2 at bantamweight, fighting 14-8 Yana Santos, and not a lot of people are giving Chandler credit in this one. She obviously has less experience. She does have 2 UFC wins, one by knockout actually, in the first round against Julia Stoliarenko. Pretty impressive. Back in October of 2022, and then she beat Josiane Nunes in her last fight by unanimous decision. Lost to Norma Dumont by unanimous decision. I'm not one to dismiss that kind of record and, you know, say that she's definitely going to lose, especially considering Yana Santos has lost her last 3 fights. Um, and actually lost 4 out of her last 6. And she beat Julia Marenko by decision, while Chandler knocked her out. And obviously, you can't really do MMA math like that, but sometimes it works. So I don't know. I think Chandler could definitely win by decision. That's kind of a 50-50 bet to me. Maybe stay away from it. Then we have Chris Gutierrez, as we mentioned earlier, is facing a replacement, Kwang Lee. And Kwang Lee has a lot of stoppages on his record, has a lot of impressive wins, but not really against anybody I've heard of. Sometimes you see in these feeder leagues somebody you've heard of, but not one of these people he's beaten is somebody I've heard of who's gone on to bigger and better things since they lost to Kwang Lee. Just the one name that sounds familiar, nobody actually I've actually heard of, Cody Peterson. That guy is 6-2, and his very last fight was a loss to Kwang Lee. So anyway, that one I'm definitely going to go Gutierrez. I think by decision, because really, when you've got a guy that's knocking people out, had 2 knockouts in a row in the feeder leagues, the best thing that you can do is take him to deep water. He's not used to it. He's got 3 decisions out of 8 wins. Last one was a split too in 2023. So I'm not giving Kwang Lee as much credit as some other people will. Then we got Danny Barlow versus Nikolai Veretennikov. And Barlow undefeated as well, 8-0, but he's a little bit different story. He is definitely favored for the right reasons. He's got 5 knockouts, 2 decisions, and 1 submission win. And he has knocked out 2 in a row in the UFC if you count the Contender Series. He had 3 first-round knockouts in a row going into his first official UFC fight, and then he won that one by TKO in the third against Josh Quinlan. And this Nikolai Veretennikov is another guy who is basically all feeder league fights. He lost in his only chance to get a UFC contract in the Dana White Contender Series back in 2021. So he is definitely not the pick for most of the guys predicting this fight card. And by TKO is pretty much the favored method for Barlow to win. But you could also go under 2.5, I think, even though Barlow had a 3rd-round knockout in his last fight. It might have been under that mark. Let me just check. Yeah, it was under that mark. It's just 1 minute and 18 seconds into the 3rd round. And then we've got the last 2 here. Damon Jackson against Jose Chepe Mariscal. This one is one that people have differing opinions on. This is one of those alternate decision bets you could make. Jackson by money line, or Mariscal by decision, or Jackson by submission, a lot of people are saying. Would have to be the way you'd go with that, and then Mariscal by decision, because you can't do money line or decision on those type of bets. But then you could also just put them in separate parlays. Jackson by money line, or Mariscal by money line, or Mariscal by decision. That's a lot of people think he's going to win that way. And then the rematch in the main event between Marcin Tybura and Sergey Spivak. A lot of times you'll see a rematch. The guy who won the first one is going to be favored. Not the case here. Most of the experts I've seen say that Spivak is actually going to pull off the win, and Spivak is actually the betting favorite. And he's done a lot since that loss. The only people that Tybura has lost to since that win are Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov. Tom would say that those are not cheap dates. Spivak, let's check him out. Okay, since he lost to Tibura, he has lost to Cyril Gagne and Tom Aspinall. Common one there, but has not really beat the best of the best. The best guy he's faced since that loss was Derek Lewis, and he beat him by arm triangle choke in the first round. So definitely took him by surprise there. Alexei Olenek, not really a world beater. He's got the one trick pony choke that he does, which is pretty fascinating that he's gotten so many of them. But that's about it. He just didn't get caught with that, so he ended up winning a unanimous decision. Spivak. So I actually like Tibura. I think is what they call a live dog. But this guy Kunis that I watch all the time, he's got Spivak by TKO or submission. So that one could go either way. Let's just check out we'll go real quickly through this MMA 365 computer odds here. They've got top 6 win only predictions. Leg 1, Danny Barlow. They've got him at a 92% winning percentage. So I'd say that is the sure thing of sure things. Danny Barlow by money line. I'm pretty sure he's got some pretty crazy odds though for that. Leg 2, Carl Lampos Gregorio. He's a big favorite by the experts too. He's got a 67.6 win percentage according to their numbers. And then the old Quang Lee, 8-0 from the feeder leagues. They've got him right below 60% at 59.89. As I said, Yusuf Zalal, big favorite. He has 58.85% chance of winning. Carol Rosa, you can always go the distance on that one because she always goes to decision. But if you want to go Carol Rosa by decision, she's got 56.51% odds of winning. And then Damon Jackson, win only 55.32%. Then we go to the win and method of victory. Leg 1, Gregorio by TKO. I have not seen that a lot, but that's what they think. Win by TKO is a 57% chance, according to them. Danny Barlow, of course, by TKO, that's 53%. Denise, as we said, loves his KOs and wins all his fights by KOs. So it's kind of shocking to see that his win percentage by TKO is only 47.36. And we got Rosa, win by decision. Big shocker. Stephanie Luciano, win by decision. 28.83% there. Damon Jackson to win by submission. 28.49% in leg 6. And not surprisingly, every single method of victory and round prediction that MMA Play 365 has the fight ending in the first round. First round. It's ridiculous how much they're slanted for the first round. If they were right about all these, I mean, boy, this would be a real killer way to win money. The only one that makes any sense is leg 2 of their six leg parlay. Denise by first round knockout. He's the only one that's got a history. Well, Barlow too, leg 2 and 3. So if I was feeling lucky, I would go Denise and Barlow both by first round knockout. But they got Damon Jackson submission in round 1. I don't think that's going to happen. Talita Allengar by submission in round 1. Sergey Spivak by KO in round 1. After he's gone to decision with the guy, I just don't like that at all. Maybe round 2 or 3. Yeah, I give him that. But round 1, after he's gone to decision with the guy, I doubt it. And then Gregorio KO round 1, of course. So, yeah. Crazy stuff. And we talked about the Fertittas a little bit earlier with Dana White and their high school, Bishop Gorman. I just noticed today that actually Frank Fertitta III has bought himself $7 million worth of Red Rock shares. That's the parent name for the Station Casinos branch now, or the chain, you call them. And I guess you can't call this insider trading, but it's weird that at the same time this news is getting around, Red Rock Resorts has put out an announcement that they're venturing into tavern gaming with something called 76. And this is really weird to me because I remember they were up in arms about the intrusion into their marketplace because they like to claim their marketplace as the locals. You know, they cater to the locals rather than the tourists. So they're known as a locals casino for whatever reason. But there was this chain called Dottie's that was a bar with slot machines. And people at station casinos like reported them and went after them for unfair competition. And I think there was a lawsuit involved too. But now they're just basically copying the same thing and going under their own brand with it. A bar casino type deal. Just kind of crazy how they steal ideas like that. But I guess that's what they're doing now that they're not involved with the UFC anymore. I think they are invested with slap fighting though. I don't know how many shares they have in that, but yeah, I have heard that they're buddy up with Dana White, put their money into it. 134,000 units. That's what 7 million gets you. At $53.20 per share. You get the family discount. All right. Anything else from you guys before we call it a night?
Nope, that's about all I had on the fight world from last week.
All right. Until next week, I hope you catch that Miss Cleo documentary series there, Tom. We'll have to talk about that if you
I'll
catch
be
it.
looking for it.
I'll check it out and we'll see if we can improve on our predictions here. Do you watch that? All right. Adios. Thanks for stopping by. All the good
All right,
stuff.
guys. Enjoy the fight.
Yes, sir.